Once upon a time, there was a boy named Eduardo who lived in the town of Los Guetos. It was a hot day in June, and Eduardo needed to go into town to buy a tie for his father for Father's Day. He left his house armed solely with a bottle of magic quick dry glue, which he had no idea why he carried, and began walking along the seemingly endless road toward the center of town. While walking, he took a gaze around and noticed the colorful birds twittering in the trees and the squirrels and raccoons that darted across his path. In stride, he bathed in the glorious sun amidst a cloudless blue sky as he took out his shopping list to remind himself of the item that he needed to purchase. As he continued down the path, he suddenly heard a strident screech from his left side. "Help!" Eduardo turned his head to see that the source of the yell came from an old man outside his home. Noticing that the old man was distressed because his cat was fidgeting crazily on the porch, Eduardo ran over and tried to calm the old man down, telling him that there was no reason to panic. He then went over and examined the cat squirming on the ground and saw that the cat had a splinter stuck in its paw. Try as he could, Eduardo simply did not have the fingernails to pinch the splinter out of the cat's paw. After some thinking, Eduardo realized that his bottle of magic glue would come in handy after all, thinking back to those life hacks he had read on Tumblr. He quickly extracted the splinter using his magic glue, and the cat quickly relaxed and scampered into the house to lick his wound. The old man shook Eduardo's hand and expressed his deepest gratitude for his help. Eduardo accepted his thanks and, realizing that he was running late, said goodbye and continued on his journey downtown. On the road, Eduardo began to contemplate what he had done to help that old man. He thought about why he had performed such a benevolent deed, and what he had gained from that incident. As he continued to ponder on the substance of his morality and ethical conduct, he lost conscious awareness of the pathway in front of him. Suddenly, he was pulled into an alleyway by a masked man who wielded a knife. "Your wallet and your phone!" shouted the man. "You're being mugged!" In a rush of adrenaline, Eduardo aimed his glue bottle at the mugger's hand and shot a stream of glue towards the mugger's chest. To Eduardo's amazement, the glue seemed to understand his desire to get rid of the mugger and began to eat through the man's shirt, burning the skin inside. The mugger screamed in pain and fled from the scene. Eduardo was amazed at what his simple magic glue just did. Shaken and scared, Eduardo left the alleyway and continued on the road. Glancing at his watch, Eduardo's face fell. He realized that he would not be able to reach the tie store in time, even if he ran. He thought of his father's disappointment in not receiving a gift for Father's Day. The previous 2 stops had cost him too much time. Eduardo was angry at himself for having stopped to help that old man, and even more angry that he had almost been mugged in an alleyway.
No, Eduardo had to buy that tie. He watched some bikers on the street and wondered if his glue could help him in this situation again. His hands shook when he thought about what he was about to do, but he was desperate. He approached a biker, stopped at the red light. "I need your bike," Eduardo cried at the man on the bike, aiming the nozzle of the magic glue bottle at the man. He shot a stream of glue which, assuming a mind and form of its own, grabbed the biker and ripped him off the seat of the bike. The man's eyes grew large and he ran away. "I'm sorry," Eduardo shouted behind him as he pedaled off. He desperately needed to get to the tie store. It was closing in just under 10 minutes. Eduardo was in a frenzy now, racing his new bike down the street. Eduardo reluctantly began to break traffic laws, reassured that his magic glue would back him up if any police were near. As he became more desperate to reach the store in time and more mad with power, his actions grew more drastic. If a car was in his way, Eduardo would use his glue to throw the car to the side. When there was a red light, Eduardo simply shot some glue out of his magic glue bottle. Sometimes the glue would puncture through the light, sometimes it would turn into a glue monster and rip the light out of its hinges. There was no end to the amount of power Eduardo possessed with his magic glue bottle. At last, Eduardo reached his destination, the tie store. With a couple minutes to spare, Eduardo burst through the doors. He went straight to the cashier, who was, to Eduardo's surprise, a short, green, elf-like creature. "May I help you?" the cashier asked. "I need to buy a tie," Eduardo shouted. "Take me to the tie section."
"Do that, I cannot. Sorry, I am,"
the cashier replied simply. Eduardo, not wanting his dire measures to buy a tie to be futile, could not believe what he was hearing. "I need a tie for my Father's Day gift. Just give me any tie at all," Eduardo ordered. He became frustrated and glued the cash register, which caused it to burst into flames. He repeated his order.
Any more ties, I'm afraid, we do not have. Out of stock, we are.
The cashier explained calmly. Eduardo was angry now. "Now you listen here. I stole a bike and broke traffic laws to get here on time. I destroyed cars and traffic lights and hurt many people so that I could get here before the store closed. I have unimaginable power within this magic blue bottle right here, and I can easily kill you and destroy your entire store with it. Now bring me a tie, or else I'll have to use the glue." The cashier looked at Eduardo solemnly, shook his head slowly, and said,
You? Argue not. There is no tie.